What? We're back again with more inaccuracies? But we're out of movies! How could we possibly keep this going? Well, there's plenty of extended media. Jurassic Park is a massive franchise with plenty of other things to talk about when it comes to accurate portrayals of dinosaurs. And this week we're going to discuss Camp Cretaceous. And some of you may be like, what the heck is Camp Cretaceous? Well, Camp Cretaceous is, first of all, in canon with the movies, and is a Netflix series that... Well, okay, looking at it, you might think it's a kid's show, and yeah, it's fine for kids, but honestly, they handled it in such a way that adults can enjoy it too. In my opinion, it's actually one of the best things to come out of the latest iteration of Jurassic media. It's multiple seasons long, with a bunch of new stuff and new characters, and actually really strong writing for the most part. Obviously, as a series, it's going to have its weaker episodes, but, I mean, I liked it a lot. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty good, and they're even working on a sequel called Chaos Theory, but that's not out yet, so we can't discuss it at this point. But Camp Cretaceous is a finished series that you can watch on Netflix right now if you haven't, and I would recommend giving it a shot. In any event, though, they do have some new dinosaurs in this series, and some non-dinosaurs as well, because of course they do. New prehistoric life, and naturally, their iterations are sort of not quite right, because, yeah, that's just par for the course, isn't it? Same rules as the previous list apply, no repeats unless there's something new to point out, and for the most part there isn't. And no hybrids, because Camp Cretaceous actually has several hybrids, and they're not relevant to the topic at hand. But without further delay, let's discuss Camp Cretaceous dinosaurs, ranked from least to most accurate. Nothosaurus. Naturally, starting out with a non-dinosaur, this is a marine reptile, but if I didn't talk about it, you'd complain. Nothosaurs were a pretty early marine reptile from the Triassic period, and they're closely related to plesiosaurs. The Camp Cretaceous version of this particular animal is interesting, though not entirely right. But I admit, the vast majority of Camp Cretaceous iterations, when it comes to newer creatures, aren't hideously wrong. Anything egregious is something carried over from the movies. The size of the animal is actually pretty spot on. It's pretty much exactly the size it should be. But the prehistoric animals are said to have webbed toes, and probably a fin on their tail. This animal, well, doesn't have the fin, for one, and for two, the feet are more like crocodilian feet, which is wrong. They are webbed, yes, but they have sharp claws on the end. It does have the long jaws and the needle-like teeth, but the skull isn't as flat as the original species would have had. So, yeah, not entirely accurate, but not hideously inaccurate. Like I said, most of the new creatures from Camp Cretaceous aren't egregiously wrong. So, yeah, and it's all uphill from here. Tarbosaurus. The fact that they even put in Tarbosaurus was a bold move, as some people argue that Tarbosaurus isn't even its own thing at all, because it's a very, very closely related animal to Tyrannosaurus. Some arguing that it even is just Tyrannosaurus, that they're the same, except Tarbosaurus lived in Asia. But that's besides the point. It's still generally considered to be a separate species, even though it's incredibly similar to Tyrannosaurus, but in this instance the problem is that they made it too similar to Tyrannosaurus. Tarbosaurus does have some notable differences. The Tarbosaurus that appears in the show, for example, is about the same size as Rexy, the T-Rex of Isla Nublar. Which is wrong. Tarbos should be a little bit smaller, and they even gave her bulkier proportions, which is definitely wrong. In some scenes, she looks even bigger than Tyrannosaurus, which, no, that's not right. They also added spikes on her body from head to tail, because style points, I guess. There's no basis for that either. And the wrists are wrong, because of course they are. They did, however, give her smaller arms than Tyrannosaurus, which actually is a lot more accurate, so that's something. But yeah, it's not exactly quite right. Overall, the issue just seems to be down to the size. She's just too big. Monolosaurus. What an exciting mouthful of a name. This is a dinosaur with a crest, but it actually is not closely related to Dilophosaurus. This animal was actually a lot closer to Allosaurus, and they hail from the Middle Jurassic period. Their appearance in the show was brief, and they're okay. Just very, very, very fine. They have pronated wrists. And honestly, what I should be doing is just letting you assume they have pronated wrists unless otherwise stated. Because they almost always have that problem. They also have the weird thin stretch of skin that goes over their nostrils, making it look like they have two nose holes, which no, I don't know why they did that. It's just a weird choice, because it doesn't really make them look cooler, it just looks odd. But their behavior is okay. They do have a preference for smaller prey, which, given their size, is appropriate. And yeah, size-wise, they're fine. Overall, an okay rendition of them. I just don't get the nose thing. Like, why did you... What was that? Like, the spikes on Tarbo, I get because it looks cool. This doesn't even look cool. It just looks bizarre. I don't understand. Kentrosaurus. This is a smaller member of the Stegosaur family that would have existed in the late Jurassic period. And overall, the rendition of Kentrosaurus in Camp Cretaceous is fine. It really doesn't have any major issues. The only problem that I notice, and I think this is major, is the size. The animal is named Pierce in the series, and he's just too big. He's just too big. They would not have been this large. That's the one major problem I can see here. He's too much chungus. Other than that, it's a fine rendition, and honestly, it was just nice to see a stegosaur that isn't actually a stegosaurus. Kentrosaurus is, well, a lot more spiky, as you can see, and they definitely got that part right. Orosaurus. These are hadrosaurs that would have existed in Africa during the early Cretaceous period. Oddly, in the show, they're not displayed as gentle giants like other hadrosaurs. These animals are pretty aggressive, though admittedly at the time, they are under siege by a predator, so they could be in super panic mode. It's hard to judge in that regard. But behavior aside, because a lot of that is purely theoretical, the actual appearance of them is alright. They have the small sails on their back, they look like hadrosaurs, they look like Orosaurus, and a major thing that I personally love about them, because every other hadrosaur doesn't do this in the series, but they did it with Orano. They run on all fours. In fact, for the most part, they stay on all fours. And thank you. Thank you for that. The idea of hadrosaurs running and standing on two legs is an outdated concept, as I've repeatedly said. I've even gotten comments of people arguing with me about it, saying, no, that's right. No, it isn't. It used to be considered correct. Years ago. But in the modern day, it's understood that they would have been quadrupedal pretty much all the time. Now, they probably could rear, sure, but they wouldn't have run around like that. And Orosaurs, unlike pretty much every other hadrosaur I've seen in the series, sticks to four legs, like they're supposed to. So bonus points for that. Smilodon. What? There's a frickin' Smilodon in this series? And yeah! It was a really cool addition to include this animal. Obviously, not a dinosaur, a mammal, but a prehistoric one, and a very famous one. Sometimes called the saber-toothed tiger, though that's just a wrong way to put it, as they weren't very closely related to tigers at all, but in any event, people generally know what this is because of those big old teeth. And when it comes to real-world science, there's actually much more of a high chance of cloning these animals, since the last species of them only went extinct about 10,000 years ago, as opposed to millions for dinosaurs, meaning that we could actually get a hold of viable DNA, and possibly clone this animal using mad, unchecked, raw science. But enough about that. I put this animal at number 1 because, well, it's pretty much alright. Now seriously, I really don't see any obvious problems with the Smilodon. Its behavior is fine, its appearance is fine. It looks like a Smilodon. They were big old angry kitties, and they made it a big old angry kitty. Ta-da! And with that, special thank you goes out to my Apex Predators, Arthur Roy, Metal for Life Guy, and Dr. Racer78. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fun farewell.